Chapter 1, Notes and Knee Bends. Something poked Samantha in the back. Samantha jumped slightly, but she didn't look up. She knew the signal. It was from Helen. Helen and Whitney had the desk behind Samantha's. Both desks were like all the other desks in the classroom at Miss Crampton's Academy for Girls. Their iron sides were molded in lacy swirls and curls, and one particular curl was just the right size for holding notes. Talking in class was not allowed in Miss Crampton's, so when Helen had something to tell Samantha, she would write it on a small piece of paper. Then she would roll the paper up, stick it in the proper iron curl, and poke Samantha in the back with her pencil. Samantha would wait until Miss Stevens wasn't looking, and then drop her hand back and pull up a note. When she caught her finger in the iron swirls and barely got it loose before Miss Stevens turned around, but usually the system worked wonderfully. Now Samantha waited until the teacher's back was turned. She reached for the note. It said, "What the dickens does Lagorge mean?" Samantha looked up quickly, squashed the note small, and shoved it into her pocket. It would be bad enough to be caught passing notes in school. She couldn't imagine what would happen if she were caught with a note that said, the Dickens. Didn't Helen have enough sense not to write almost swear words in school? But there wasn't enough time for Samantha to answer Helen's note. Miss Stevens had already finished writing a long list of French words on the blackboard. Now she turned around and faced the class, and she looked and she looked straight at Helen. "Helen, will you please tell us what Lagorge means?" Miss Stevens asked. Samantha tried to give Helen a clue. Ahem. She cleared her throat rather loudly. Miss Stevens stared at her, then looked back at Helen. Helen didn't answer, so Samantha tried again. She rubbed the back of her neck. "Samantha, are you well?" asked Miss Stevens. She was looking at Samantha through gold-rimmed spectacles that seemed to see everything. She looked as if she had a pretty good idea of what was going on. "Yes, ma'am," said Samantha softly. She folded her hands on her desk. Helen would have to answer on her own. "Is it the neck?" squeaked Helen uncertainly. "No, Helen, it is not," said Miss Stevens. She looked around the room. Edith Edelton stretched her hand high in the air, and Miss Stevens called on her. "Lagorge," said Edith smugly, "means the throat." "That is correct," said Miss Stevens, and Edith gloated. Samantha could just imagine Edith keeping score in her head. Me, 107, everyone else 0. Edith was smart, but not as smart as she thought she was. Probably no one on earth was as smart as Edith Edelton thought she was. The class was just finishing the list of words on the blackboard when the lunch bell rang. The girls stood beside their desks. They waited until Miss Stevens nodded for them to go and get their lunch boxes from the cloakroom. Then they filed quietly out the door. The day was warm, so the girls could eat outside on the benches in the yard. The day was warm, so the girls could eat outside on the benches in the yard. Helen, Ida Dean, and Ruth Adams waited for Samantha at their usual spot. Samantha squirmed as she sat down next to them. Her legs itched from the long flannel underwear that was tucked under her stockings, but she had to wear it whether the days were warm or cold. Grandmary said, flannel underwear kept children from getting consumption, and she insisted that Samantha put it on at the beginning of September. "Do you think Miss Crampton will make us do arm stretches today?" Ida asked between bites of her chopped olive sandwich. Miss Crampton was head of the academy, and she was very serious about exercise. At 1 o'clock every day, she came to the classroom to lead the girls in exercises. "If she makes us do 50 arm stretches, I'm going to faint," Ida added with a sigh. At least arm stretches are better than knee bends, answered Helen. I hate knee bends. I think Miss Crampton is trying for the world record in knee bends. It could be worse, said Ruth. At my cousin's school, they have to practice swimming, but they don't have any water. They have to hang with big ropes around their waists. Then they have to kick and paddle, just hanging in the air like that. In the air like that. Ida looked at her in disbelief. Oh, they never, she gasped. Ruth nodded importantly. I swear it, they do. And she licked jelly neatly off her fingers. The girls were quiet for a moment, all giving silent thanks for the swimming hole in Mount Bedford. At least they could learn to swim in real water. Maybe knee bends aren't so bad after all, Ida finally said. Samantha took a gingerbread cookie out of her lunchbox and grew quiet while the other girls talked on. Every time she had gingerbread, Samantha thought about Nellie. Samantha had given Nellie her first taste of gingerbread last summer when Nellie worked next door at the Rylands' house. But Mrs. Rylands sent Nellie back to the city. Now Samantha missed her friend. She thought about Nellie every day. She remembered all the things Nellie had told her about her life in the city, and she worried. Nellie had said her whole family, all 5 of them, lived in one room in a crowded building. There was only one window in the room, and the air always smelled bad. In the summer, the room was very hot, and in the winter, it was terribly cold. There was a little stove for cooking, but there was never enough coal to make the room warm. And Nellie had said they were nearly always hungry because there wasn't enough money. Samantha remembered all the things Nellie had told her, and the gingerbread tasted dry in her mouth. As she swallowed the last of her milk, Samantha's thoughts were jerked back to the schoolyard by the ringing of Miss Crampton's bell. She hurried to get in line with the other girls. They all marched back inside to face another afternoon, beginning with Miss Crampton's knee bends.